Hi everyone, my name is Liv and I'm a left-handed crocheter. Today I'm going to show you the basics of how to crochet left-handed. By the end of this video you'll know what materials you'll need, how to hold your yarn and how to hold your hook, how to make a slip knot, how to make a chain crochet stitch, and how to make a single crochet stitch. So let's get right into it. First, let's go over the materials you'll need. You'll need some yarn, a crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a tapestry needle. For beginners, I'd recommend using a worsted weight yarn, which is also called a medium 4-weight yarn. You can check the weight of the yarn by looking at the yarn label. The yarn label will also tell you what size crochet hook is recommended to use with that yarn. Crochet hooks come in many different sizes, and the size hook you need to use corresponds with the thickness of the yarn that you're using. For example, on this yarn label, it says that it is a weight 4 yarn, and that they recommend using a 5mm hook, which is also called a US H8 hook. I personally think that a 5mm hook and medium or 4-weight yarn is a good place to get started for a beginner. The scissors can be any type of scissors. You're just going to be using them to cut off the ends of your yarn when you're done your project. The tapestry needle, you can get ones that are metal or ones that are plastic, and they're used to weave in the ends of your project once you're done crocheting. An optional material to use are stitch markers. Stitch markers are used to keep track of your stitches and can be helpful for keeping track of the end of your rows as a beginner crocheter. Next, I'll show you how to hold a hook and yarn. For the hook, I just have a 5mm crochet hook right here, and you hold it in your left hand as a left-handed crocheter. There are a couple different ways to hold your hook. I would suggest trying them both out and seeing which is more comfortable for you. The first is called the pencil grip, and you hold the crochet hook the way you would hold a pencil. Second is the knife grip, which is what I use, and you hold your crochet hook the way you would hold a dinner knife. As a left-handed crocheter, you're going to be holding the yarn in your right hand. This is how I hold it. I wrap a loop around my pinky and then bring it around my index finger, but this is more just up to you for how you hold your yarn. I would just suggest playing around with it and seeing what feels best in your hand. Next, I'll teach you how to make a slip knot. First, make a loop around your 2 fingers with the yarn so that you can see an X on top of your fingers. Then turn your hand, and there are 2 different strands here. So what you're going to do is go under that first strand and over the second strand, and then pull that second strand through and hold on to the tail and pull to make the knot. You can also make a slip knot using your hook. So what I do is I wrap it around till I see the X, then I turn and go under the first strand, over the second strand, and I pull it through with my hook, turn, tighten. Then what you do to tighten it on the hook is you just hold onto the tail and pull your working yarn. Next is the chain stitch. To start the chain stitch, have a slip knot on your hook. Then you wrap the yarn with your right hand around the hook and pull that yarn through the loop on your hook. This is called the chain stitch. Once again, you wrap the yarn over the hook, and this is commonly called a yarn over. Then you pull that yarn through the loop on your hook. Keep practicing the chain stitch, and I'll meet you when you have a row of 21 chains. Now, moving on to the single crochet stitch. So you should have a row of 21 chain stitches so far, and there's 2 ways to count. You can count from the tail or you can count from the hook. So if you just make sure that you count, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Notice how this loop that is still on your hook does not count as a chain stitch. This is going to be important when you start working the single crochet row. Now I'm going to put the yarn back in my hand, and what you're going to do is work into the second chain from the hook. So this is a loop, not a chain. This is the first chain, and this is the second chain. The reason why you do this is because a single crochet is one chain high, so you need that so that the height of the single crochet will work up okay. Now there are two ways of working into a foundation chain. One way is to insert your hook into this little V here. So you can do that, where you put your hook just into the V through the one loop, or you can turn your chain and work into this little back bump here. I personally, as a crocheter now, when I start projects, like to work into that back bump, but I do personally think that it is easier to work into the V of the chain as a beginner crocheter, so that's what I'm going to show you how to do. Now onto the single crochet stitch. So you insert your hook into the second chain through the V part of the stitch, then you yarn over and pull through the first loop that is on your hook. Now you've pulled through the chain, and the second part of the single crochet stitch is you yarn over again and pull through both loops on the chain. And there you go, you have your first single crochet. So once again, you insert your hook, you yarn over, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through the second loop. And one more time, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through one loop, yarn over, pull through two. So just keep practicing this until you get to the end of your chain, and I'll meet you at the last stitch. Okay, so I'm on the last stitch left in the chain, and you can tell that it's the last chain because there is this knot over here. So what I'm going to do is once again insert into the chain, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops. Now you're at the end of the row. What you're going to do next is chain one and turn your work. This is called a turning chain. So I'm going to show you how to do it one more time. You are on the last stitch. You've completed it. So you've completed the last stitch. Then you yarn over and chain one. Then you turn your work the way you would flip a page in a book. So like this. Now you're starting on the back side of the crochet project. So to start row 2, you now have these V's, which it kind of looks like the chain, but you have these V's on top of your row, on top of the single crochet. So you have these V's on top of each of the single crochets. So what you're going to do is you look at the V, and then you see that there's a hole here. So what you do is you insert through that hole, then you should have a V on your crochet hook. Then you're going to do what you did before for the single crochets. So you yarn over, pull through the V, then you yarn over and pull through both, and that is your single crochet. So once again, see that there's the V here, and then there is a hole. So you insert your hook and have the V on your hook, then you yarn over, pull through the V, yarn over, pull through 2. So just keep practicing this until you get to the end of the row, and then we'll go from there. So now I'm on the second last single crochet stitch of the second row. I'm just going to do the stitch. Now this last stitch can be a bit tricky because if you remember when we had 21 chains, we skipped that first chain. So that is kind of what this is when we were doing the first row of single crochet. So it can be a little bit tricky to get underneath the V there, but here I'll show you. And it's still just single crochet stitch with the V, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, then we'll be moving on to the third row. So once again, you chain 1, turn your crochet, and work right into the single crochet you just did. So now I'm going to keep making these rows until we get to 10 rows, and then I'm going to show you how to finish your piece. And I am back with 1 stitch left of the 10th row. And what you're going to do to fasten this off is you do the last stitch of the 10th row, like normal. And then similar to what you do with the turning chains, you're going to chain 1. But now you're going to drop the working yarn and pull that chain tight with your hook. Then you can take the hook out of the yarn and you're going to pick up the working yarn again and grab your scissors. So here's my scissors, and what you're going to do is on the piece of the working yarn, so you want it to be on the right of that little knot that you just made. You want it to be over here, not in the loop. You're going to take it and you're going to snip with your scissors. And I'm going to put my scissors away now. And then you pick it up and just pull on the loop, and that loose part of the yarn will come through, but you still have this little knot here, and that is called fastening off. Now the last step of what you're going to want to do is to take your tapestry needle and weave in the ends. Weaving the ends consists of taking the loose yarn, putting it on your needle, and going through some of the stitches of your project so that the yarn will be hidden inside your project. And the purpose of weaving the ends is so that your project does not unravel over time. I know that we do have knots at both ends of this swatch, but it can still happen that even if you snipped it right here, the knot could come undone, so you're going to want to make sure to weave in your ends. So how I like to weave in my ends is I take the yarn and I put it through the needle. I have metal tapestry needles, but you can also get plastic ones as well. But what you do is you pick up your needle and you pick up your piece. I'm going to turn it around so it's like this. And then what you're going to want to do with the needle in your left hand is you're going to want to stick that needle through some of the loops of the yarn. Weaving the ends doesn't have to be too particular. You don't have to go through the same stitches that I go through or anything like that. But I do recommend weaving them in 3 different directions. So I weave mine in this way, back this way, and then one more time, just to make sure that the yarn will be stuck in there. And now I'll show you what I mean by that. So I already put it through that one little loop, but now I'm just going to pick up a bunch of loops on the hook. It's just all here, and it's the same color, so it doesn't matter if you can like see the yarn through it once you pull the yarn through, because you're not going to notice a difference. So I probably have the needle through like maybe like an inch here. So now you're going to pull that needle through and pull the yarn through that's on the needle. And you want to pull it kind of tight, but not too tight, because as you use your crochet piece, like say it is a scarf or something, this is just a swatch, but if it was a scarf, it would get stretched out, it might get stretched out this way, so you don't want it to be too tight, but I like to stretch it out a little bit in between. So that was once this way. Now I'm going to go through this way. So I'm going to turn it again, and you skip a loop or two. I usually just do one, but you would skip this loop and go into the next loop because you want to make sure that the yarn that you just pulled through stays where it is. So again, I'm just going to go through all of these pieces of the yarn and you just kind of rock the needle back and forth. And then I'm going to get to this little end loop here, and I'd say that is enough as well. So I'm going to pull it through and then stretch it out a little bit. So that was the second time, so I'm going to do it one more time going the opposite direction. So this is my last time doing it. I'm going to skip the first loop and then go through a bunch of loops, and I like to do like an inch and a half kind of thing. So I think that is probably good enough. So I'm going to pull it through. Stretch it out a little bit. And that is all we've done. Now all you have to do is take your scissors and snip off the extra yarn there. And here, if you look at it, you wouldn't even notice that there's that extra yarn there. It's all woven in and it shouldn't come undone. The last thing you have to do for this swatch is weave in that first tail end that you had. So this is going to be the exact same thing as the other one I just did. I'm going to go through to the right, turn, go through the other way, turn, go back this way. And now that that end is also woven in, I'm just going to snip off the rest of the yarn. Pull it a little, and then that swatch is complete. And now you've done your first single crochet swatch. That's it for today's crochet tutorial. I hope you had fun making your single crochet swatch. And please let me know what other crochet topics you'd like me to cover in future tutorials. I do plan on making quite a few tutorials about different crochet stitches, how to do them as a left-handed person. And I also do plan on making a video about beginner-friendly crochet projects very soon.